Hi everyone, how you going? I've got an update from Kalgoorlie. You're not going to believe what they've been putting this poor woman through. Yeah, this is just unbelievable. So I'm just waiting for a notification to pop up and then I can continue. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes and see what comes up here. Oh dear. So, talk about putting people through the ringer. It's absolutely horrendous what they're putting through this lady in Kalgoorlie through, this New Zealand national. So the social worker rings her after she put all of the documentation through on Friday, right? Starts with a million questions. How did you get your PTSD? Right? Etc. All right? So bear in mind that this social worker rang at 4:30 p.m. in the evening, or late afternoon. So it starts going on through questions about her PTSD and on her health and stuff like that. Wanting to know why she was on the medication that she was on, and considering she wasn't on any medication until all this crap started a couple of weeks ago, till this card came and her psychiatrist put her on all this medication, right? It's just unbelievable, some of the questions that she's been asked, right? Now, Coles don't do delivery in, and Woolies don't do delivery in Kalgoorlie. And this woman is on foot, right, with a baby and an 11-year-old. So it's, why can't you catch a taxi? Well, the taxis don't take the card either, right? One of the stupidest questions is, well, why can't you negotiate a cheaper price with the taxi drivers? Excuse me, all right? Apparently not being able to get to the shops or shop is not a valid enough reason to be let off the card. Wonder if they're going to try and pull that one on Mahalia, you know what I mean, who still can't buy food, right? Apparently being made homeless is not a valid enough reason to be let off the card either, right? Apparently being homeless is not a valid enough reason, right? So then this social worker suggests that she moves her eldest child out of his current school and put him in another school. Why? At the moment, this kid has supports, friends, teachers, and supports around him and is doing well in school, right? Is having to cope with his own mental health issues regarding what's been through the trauma with the family. Why would you pull your kid out of school? Why? Why would a social worker even ask that? Why would they be asking her to destabilise her child even more, right? Then the question was, how would being homeless impact yours and your children's mental health? Seriously, right? You're a New Zealand citizen. You should have lots of friends and family, right? Find it very difficult to believe that you don't. Honestly, there's a lot of people out here that don't have friends and family, right? Well, why don't you leave? Yeah, okay, she's got the order lifted. She can leave town now. Can't actually pull the kid out of school, though, because there's still current orders in place for that as well, all right? So, this lady says, well, what money? It's $1,500 to $2,000 to ship stuff to Perth. You need a bond and rent in advance. You need somewhere to move to, right? And movers don't accept Indu. Oh, you can use the card to use, the movers don't accept Indu card. The taxis don't accept Indu card. I mean, honestly, telling this woman, why don't you negotiate a cheaper rate for a cheaper taxi fare on a 20%? You can't do that. Taxi fares are set down by the state government in each state. You can't negotiate for a cheaper fare unless something dodgy's going on. Do you know what I mean? And that's why most of the regional areas with taxis don't accept the card, because there was dodgy stuff going on in the past, right? So they expect her to use her to catch a taxi to go to Coles each way is $22 each way. And to go to her job agency is around about $24, $25 each way. She's got $124 a fortnight coming in right now because she's not activated the card, okay? And they're expecting her to spend $94 on taxi fares to get around the place. But the thing is, that doesn't leave any money for shopping, does it? right? They can't understand why she's walking everywhere and it takes 2 hours to walk, right? They even asked some other personal questions. And then they're jumping up and down, why haven't you activated the card? Well, she's been told to by her doctors and her medical professionals not to. So she's following her medical professional advice not to. Okay? So they've decided this social worker was really going out here, right? Well, why can't you ask your neighbours if they can take you shopping and maybe you give them $10 for a start? Her neighbours are in their 80s. They don't have car seats in their car for her children. And why should she have to ask her neighbours? Right? Or maybe she could put the baby into childcare for the day to go shopping. It's like, honestly, they've got no idea, right? So then the woman got upset because it was late in the day. It was 5:45 or something. And she was talking about ringing this woman's psychologist. And she's going, well, he's closed now. Oh, why didn't you tell me? It's like, because you rang up at 4:30, the end of the working day. Right? So then they turn around and say, we have to ring your psychologist, there's lots of weird things commented about. So they might let her know something next week sometime, right? Now, let's go back a little bit, where last week this lady attended the Centrelink office in Kalgoorlie, where a social worker there refused to upload documents, etc., kept her there for 4.5 hours, right? And completely stressed this woman out to the max. Then later in the week when she returned, the Centrelink officers turned around and said, we don't have a social worker here. You didn't come here, right? This never happened. Well, guess what? Somebody made a note of it because the social worker asked her about that incident where she had already attended previously. There was notes made. So, but no, there is no longer any social workers available in Kalgoorlie. That has come from the social worker that just spoke to this lady, right? At this time, there isn't any social workers available in Kalgoorlie. They put 903 more people on this damn card this month, and there's no social worker in Kalgoorlie for people to talk to. Isn't that disgusting? Right? So they're still pushing her to activate the card and jumping up and down. And then, why are you not activating the card? Because the doctors have told her not to activate. She's following her doctor's advice. All right, and they're still pushing, all right? And she said, look, if anything goes wrong, she needs to have access to cash now to go to a hotel in an emergency, right? They're all blocked merchants, so they don't work on the card, right? So this woman starts going, oh, well, you can go to your neighbours for help. Go to your elderly neighbours for help. Really? All right? And then they won't, she can't go back to a women's refuge if things go wrong because her ex knows where it is. Because he breached an order before to try and get her. You know what I mean? This is so frustrating. Right? But to tell her, oh, I'm sure you can stay with your neighbours who are in their 80s. Oh, all right? And then to state that homelessness is not a good enough reason to be let off the program. And get this one. Maybe you're getting a little too excited and that's the reason why your psychiatrist put you on the meds. What the hell? All right. So this social worker asked if this woman had signed an ROI, which is a release of information form from her psychiatrist, and so that he could release her medical information. And she said no, because he's only required under the legislation to list the impacts it would have on her should she be continued to be forced onto this program. He's not required under the legislation to divulge her medical information, right? But they keep harping on about her and pressing her, and it's just crap what they're going on about. So she can't pay the school fees, right? And that includes the school uniform and pants. Now, school uniform's $45 for the jumper, and pants are $45, but Indu's not accepted to buy school uniform there either. Same in Mahalia's case. She can't buy school uniform for her children, right, in the town that she's in. She can't pay school fees in the town that she's in. there's a pattern here, you know what I mean? Okay, so this lady's son goes to counselling. Well, he was, but she can't afford to pay for it. Okay, so she's had to now cancel his counselling. Now, school was getting really pissed off because the appointments were made at 3:30 p.m. for his counselling. She would have to go, walk to the school, pull him out of school at 2:15 so that they could walk. Okay? Now, another thing, he was playing footy. Okay? Now, that's part of his therapy as well. He's had to quit the footy. Okay? Funny thing that this social worker asked her if she knew any politicians. And she goes, why? Oh, because your case has been escalated. And then she turned around and said, your son shouldn't be playing sport if you can't afford his equipment. You know, it's part of his therapy, for God's sakes, as well. And, you know, his team uniform and his books, she would normally be able to buy online. Cheaper, right? Because guess what? Here we go. Shoes. There's one Sports Power store in Kalgoorlie and they're $99 for the footy boots. Under normal circumstances, she would buy them online cheaper. But the second-hand shops in town are too expensive as well. They've hiked all their prices up. And in a lot of cases, it's cheaper to actually buy new than it is to go to the second-hand shops. Funny that. That seems to be the case with Salvos and Vinnies across the board. Right? I don't know. This is just horrendous. This is horrendous. And that these social workers think they can have all this information. So she quoted some legislation to them too. You know, that, you know, Services Australia have the power to instruct Indu to take her off the card like that. And they do. So why aren't they? Why is the social worker asking all this information? Why do they need to send all of her personal, medical, financial information to Indu or whoever's collecting this data when Centrelink already have her information anyway? And they're really upset that her landlord won't budge. Well, he's not, this is, you know, the landlord's been through this before, all right, and he doesn't have to. It's not his fault. He's not the bad guy in this, right? He's fully entitled to say, no, I don't want to go through this again. He didn't get his rent paid last time, all right? It was too much of a stuff around. He can't afford default fees on his mortgage, right? That's the impact for owners when the rents are paid late or not at all. And they don't have to go through this, right? And I will defend the owners in this respect because they're not doing anything wrong. They're just, Now, her owner's been very kind. He's been very patient. The money from the GoFundMe, when that ends and goes through, is going straight to him for the rent as well, right? That will all be sorted, and he's being really patient. And he's doing her a big favour. All the rents are going up, as we know, all over the country. He's not going to put her rent up. And once she gets off this card, then he'll do her another new lease type thing, and he'll set her rent so she's not under financial hardship. Because, yeah, she's got a really good owner here. And they're telling her, move, do this, do that, just go here, just go there. Right? And it's like, this is just rubbish what they're putting her through, the stress they're putting her through. And then they, you know, how can somebody ask all these personal questions? Where's this information going? Who's collecting this data? And what's it being used for? Is the question I have. But to expect people, I'll just use a taxi. Just get childcare. Just move your kid out of his school where at the moment he's stable, right? Just, you know, you have to pull him out of counselling. You have to pull him out of his sports, you know, and then to turn around and say that he shouldn't be playing sports anyway if you can't afford it. Well, if she hadn't been if her 80% wasn't stuck on the card, she could afford it. Because she was budgeting quite well beforehand. She's never been late with her rent, never had a problem with her bills. You know what I mean? They're the ones screwing up her finances, not her. You know? This is just ridiculous. So the story goes on. And We won't stop reporting it. One of the funniest things is they asked her if she knew a politician. And she's like, why? Oh, because your case has been escalated. Yes, there's politicians involved in this now that know about this. And then the woman said to her, oh, it's highly unlikely. And if it hadn't have been escalated, you would have been waiting 6 months for a reply. Why? She comes off payments in August anyway. I think this is a case of let's screw you while we can. Because, let me guess, I want to know, and we need an answer to this question. If you're not on a trigger payment, right, then I'm still trying to track down another New Zealand national that is not on a trigger payment. However, I've been told her family tax A and B is all 100% on a cashless debit card. I'm still trying to track that person down, okay? Because that person should not be on a cashless debit card if they're not receiving a trigger payment. This lady will no longer receive a trigger payment as of August, because under the New Zealand scheme that we have here, which is really cruel, unlike in New Zealand where you can go over there and you can get benefits and you're not relegated to job seeker only for 6 months. That's all she's been allowed to have. She's worked here for over 10 years, by the way. Yeah, they're just putting her through absolute hell and just winding her up, stressing her out. It's just bonkers. It is just bonkers what's going on. Telling people to go to their neighbours for help and use workarounds. And being homeless is not a valid... Being made homeless by them is not a valid enough reason to be let off the card. All right? Being driven off a cliff is not good enough reason to be... Being sent bankrupt is not a good enough reason. It's like, this is bullshit. This is about quotas. This is about money. This is about Indu's contract. Because there's no room in here for humanity and any form of compassion or allowance for somebody's mental health, their circumstances. This is now obvious. It's all about quotas, money, 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 money. Right? And no matter what it does to the family, it doesn't matter. Right? Apparently, none of it's a good enough reason to get off the card. Okay. We shall see. Anyway, I'll keep you informed as much as I can. The lady this morning with the puppy going to the vet, she managed to get a temporary card activated, which she was able to pay the vet bill, but it's absolutely wiped her out financially for the rest of the fortnight. And the dog's got to go on some pretty heavy medication. Fingers crossed it works. Do you know what I mean? The dog has been given some an injection of some stuff and has got tablets and stuff to go home with. Excuse me. So fingers crossed. Don't mind me. There's a fly in here and he's bugging me. This is just, yeah. I just don't know what to say. The inhumanity. Yeah. Obviously, your CRN, that's all you are, is a CRN number that's a commodity making money for another private corporation, and you're not even seen as human anymore. All your children and your children's needs and your needs can go out the window. That's all I'm seeing here is absolute plain indifference. What sort of social worker has no compassion? None whatsoever. And just kept gaslighting this woman constantly. That's all she was doing. Or why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? All right? Things that she can't do anyway. That's called gaslighting. You're not taking a person's situation seriously and then even suggesting, that the person's a liar or things like that. Or, I find it very difficult to believe. Gaslighting. You know what I mean? Comments like that, gaslighting. So they're using psychological warfare on cashless debit card holders, knowing damn well that these people, right, so No, there's no social worker available in Kalgoorlie. This is a social worker from Services Australia rang her this morning, Amanda. Or rang her yesterday, late, like 4:30 p.m. yesterday afternoon, and then got all upset because she couldn't ring a psychologist at 5:45 because he closed at 5. So they were going to ring today, and they might let her know sometime next week. Sometime next week. Same as Mahalia has now been told, they might let her know Friday or Monday. They're dragging everybody's things out. Well, yeah, okay. This is just getting ridiculous. But the social worker at Services Australia has now confirmed there is no social worker available at Kalgoorlie at this time. All right. But they did have record of her attending the first visit, which the Centrelink staff claimed that she never went to. Remember that last week? Oh. So, anyway. Okay, I'm going to go. So, puppy seems to be good at the moment. It's wiped out B's finances to pay the vet bill, but she got the temporary cashless debit card to work, right? So puppy seems to be good. That's a positive at the moment. Medications administered and fingers crossed. Okay. Mahalia couldn't buy food, but has had a call back from the department and now has to wait until the end of the week, or possibly next week. And we've got this lady here who's still going through hell, who has now got appointments coming out of her bum at the end of the week with her doctors, etc. on Thursday. Yes, okay. All caught up on those people at the moment. What a day. If you are on the cashless debit card and you are having issues, please send us your story, all right? If you don't want it publicised, that's fine, but at least send me your story, okay? And let me know how you've been treated and what's been going on and how they've treated you overall, because yeah, it is just ridiculous. It is just really, really, really ridiculous. Yeah, so hopefully puppy will be okay, Marge. Yeah. But all the nightmare of having to race into a Centrelink office and to beg to be able to get access to money because they sent her card to the wrong address. She shouldn't even be on that card. That lady should not be on that card at all. Out of region, she shouldn't even be on it. But this is where I think it's about quotas. It's about quotas and your CRN number. You and your children are now a CRN number. You're not human beings anymore. You're just $12,000 setup fee and $826 to $2,000, depending on what it is, per annum administration fees. That's all you are. You're cash cows for Indu and their mates, all right? And that's how it's being treated. Because honestly, how a social worker is supposed to be like a support worker. I'm sick of this particular group actually questioning this woman's doctors, right? This will be interesting to see how it goes through, because they're going to be ringing her doctors, and she has not given them an ROI form, because her doctor has made it very clear they're not required to have her medical information and a diagnosis, because she's not applying for a disability support pension, right? They're only required to have the impacts from his medical professional opinion as to what's going to happen to her. All right, so yes. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.